One mystery that is still left unanswered in Classroom of the Elite is the mystery about Ayanokoji's enrollment at ANHS. At first Ayanokoji said that he ran away from his father, but ever since Volume 0, it's pretty much confirmed that Ayanokoji's enrollment at ANHS was planned by his father from the start. However, for what reason Atsuomi chose to send Ayanokoji to school is still left unsaid, but with the big revelation in Volume 2 of the third year arc, we could take a very good guess on what Atsuomi is actually planning. So, let's take a look at it one by one. First, let's set the chronology clear. Ayanokoji's backstory was first introduced in Volume 7 where Atsuomi came to school. He said that Ayanokoji is not supposed to spend 3 years of his life in school, so Atsuomi ordered him to withdraw from school. However, Ayanokoji refused, and Atsuomi could not force him to withdraw, so he later sent Tsukishiro and the White Room students to try to expel Ayanokoji. However, ever since Volume 0 was released, we finally knew that Atsuomi has another intention behind his complicated action. He never has any intention to expel Ayanokoji, and even though he sent Tsukishiro and the White Room student, it was all just acting to disguise his true intention. For better or worse, I believe the reason why Atsuomi sent Ayanokoji to ANHS was to gather allies by showcasing his ability for the whole ANHS to see. Second, let's see Atsuomi's current situation. By the end of Volume 0, Atsuomi was literally exiled from the political world. Betrayed by Naoya who chose to support Kijima, Atsuomi decided to fight back using the White Room that he held very dearly. However, the White Room itself is not enough. If he really wants to fight Kijima, he will need a lot of strong allies from all kinds of different factions, so he decided to lure them by using Ayanokoji as the bait. Atsuomi decided to send Ayanokoji to ANHS, and with the help of Tsukishiro, he spread the news to a lot of important people. Ayanokoji's data alone should be enough for Atsuomi to get a lot of sponsors, but if he wants to catch the bigger fish, he will need to show them stronger proof. After all, data can be manipulated, and academic or physical achievement is not going to be enough for people in the political world. That's why Atsuomi sent Ayanokoji to ANHS, so he could show them a real-life achievement Ayanokoji could get. This is where things start to get complicated. If things go according to Atsuomi's plan, Ayanokoji will be placed in Class D, so reaching Class A by carrying the defective product will be quite a good achievement to present to the potential ally. However, there is no guarantee that Ayanokoji would be willing to reach for Class A. At worst case scenario, Ayanokoji will just spend 3 years without doing anything, and that is exactly what will happen if Atsuomi doesn't take any action. Atsuomi intentionally didn't tell Ayanokoji his plan, because there is a high chance Ayanokoji will simply destroy it as petty revenge on his father. So Atsuomi decided to play the role of a villain and create a scenario as if he didn't want Ayanokoji to stay in school. Since Ayanokoji was in his rebellious phase, he refused to follow Atsuomi's order back in Volume 7, and that is exactly as Atsuomi predicted. I think it's safe to say that Atsuomi ordered Matsuo to influence Ayanokoji about the world outside, and eventually recommended him to attend ANHS. With Ayanokoji choosing to stay at school, Atsuomi ended up getting a lot of chances to show Ayanokoji's ability to the potential ally. By sending Tsukishiro and the White Room student, Ayanokoji will be forced to act and show his ability, and by doing so, all the potential allies would be able to see it through the observer that they sent. The introduction of Shiraishi opens this possibility. Since Ayanokoji's existence itself invites a lot of curiosity, it wouldn't hurt for them to send 1 or 2 students to observe Ayanokoji to prove if he really is worth the hype. If they get proof that Ayanokoji has that much potential that could change the entire map of the political world, then the chance of them cooperating with Atsuomi will increase, and that is exactly what Atsuomi wanted. Tsubasa Nanase's quote from the third year website supports this possibility. She said that Ayanokoji will undoubtedly become someone who can move this country forward. While we didn't know who she was talking with, her words were arranged as if she were sure Ayanokoji would become someone big in the future, and not just a simple instructor in the White Room. There is still some mystery regarding Tsubasa, but her quote sounds like a report, or maybe she is trying to convince someone. It's possible that quote was her report to the potential ally, but since she is currently gathering allies to avoid the worst possible outcome, it could be another side that has no affiliation with Atsuomi. However, one thing for sure is, there are a lot of people outside ANHS who are watching for Ayanokoji. Atsuomi's plan was to take advantage of ANHS as the playground to showcase Ayanokoji's ability. To make sure Ayanokoji shows his best feat to attract the potential ally, Atsuomi need to send Tsukishiro and White Room students so Ayanokoji wouldn't be able to keep pretending to be a normal student. Thanks to them, the whole school ended up knowing that Ayanokoji could get a perfect score on the exam, and could survive the uninhabited island exam even when he faced it alone. It's true that it doesn't sound that impressive, but Tsukishiro and Yagami are just the beginning. Other than them, there are a few students who seem like they were placed in ANHS for some kind of purpose, such as Coenji and Ishigami. If we are looking from the eye of the potential ally, it's just natural that they wanted to test Ayanokoji, so all those students were probably sent to challenge Ayanokoji at some point. First we got Shiroishi as an observer. Although her placement in Class A seems weird because Ayanokoji was placed in Class D, she will become the primary source of information for the allies outside, assuming she has a second phone just like Tsubasa. Judging by her report throughout the year, the allies outside will decide if it's worth sending another student to test Ayanokoji. Thanks to Class D's performance at the Deserted Island exam and the final special exam, they decide to send more students, and that brings us to the second year arc. Shiroishi mentioned that she has one or more associates in the school, and judging by how she knew about Ayanokoji's location at the gym, and also the quote from the third-year website, Utomiya becomes the main suspect to be Shiroishi's associate. However, unlike Shiroishi, Utomiya doesn't seem to be just a simple observer, because from the way he behaves and the possible talent he has, his role is most likely a fighter. Let's talk about Utomiya for a bit, because from the bonus side story from the second-year manga, we got a bit of new perspective about Utomiya. In that side story, Utomiya believes that there is no way Hosen could win against Ayanokoji. Utomiya said he could know with just an observation, and assuming what he said is true, Utomiya is most likely a very skilled fighter with a very sharp observation in that area. However, back in volume for second-year arc, Utomiya said he was sure he could fight one-on-one with Ayanokoji, and if he really had that sharp observation, his word is better to not be taken lightly. If Utomiya is really Shiroishi's companion with that much fighting ability, then we could take a guess that he was sent to ANHS in order to test Ayanokoji's physical ability. However, Utomiya doesn't have much action in the second-year arc, and based on his quote from the third-year website, he doesn't seem to have much interest in Ayanokoji, so Utomiya is most likely still waiting for the upcoming order. Volume 2 of the third-year arc gave us another hint about Utomiya and the new first-year girl who just came to ANHS. Judging by what the newest volume told us, the new girl is very athletic and also skilled in combat just like Utomiya, so there is a high chance they came from the same place or were sent by the same person. However, if Utomiya is confident he could take down Ayanokoji by himself, then there should be no reason to send another combat agent to confront Ayanokoji. The arrival of the new girl could mean that either the potential ally doesn't trust Utomiya could handle Ayanokoji alone, or the new girl was sent for another reason. However, her arrival and connection with Utomiya is proof that the potential ally outside is still watching Ayanokoji. Ayanokoji's action in the second year, and Class D successfully climb up the ladder must have convinced them about his ability, and that's why Atsuomi didn't do anything else after Yagami got expelled. Tsukishiro's final fight against Ayanokoji is probably the reason why they need to delay their plan until the arrival of the new girl. Because after experiencing it firsthand, Tsukishiro must have realized Utomiya alone is not enough to handle him, and it explains why there is no more action from Atsuomi and Tsukishiro after Yagami got expelled. To make it simple, Atsuomi and Tsukishiro's entire action was just a test to force Ayanokoji to take action. Starting from giving him the protect point, gathering a few freshmen in an exam to expel him, and sending a mentally unstable Yagami to further showcase how big the difference is between Ayanokoji and them. Every action of Ayanokoji was carefully predicted and manipulated by them, and Ayanokoji is still not realizing this cruel fact. In volume 12.5, Atsuomi said that he will not bother Ayanokoji anymore for the rest of his school life, and in his conversation with Tsukishiro, Atsuomi said that Ayanokoji finally showed that he could be useful. From his word, we could assume that for whatever reason he sent Ayanokoji to ANHS, he already reached his goal. Atsuomi probably thinks that he no longer needs to take action, because Ayanokoji finally chose to show his full ability by transferring to the lower class. However, the whole matter with President Coenji seems to be another reason why he is satisfied with Ayanokoji's work, because it's not something that Atsuomi had planned since the beginning. It was a pure coincidence that he saw President Coenji in the three-party meeting list, and it also a pure coincidence that Ayanokoji and Coenji's schedules were next to each other. However, it exceeded his expectation in a good way, and since Ayanokoji is willing to show his full power without Atsuomi need to intervene, everything seems to run in Atsuomi's favor. Needless to say, Ayanokoji's fight with Coenji will become a surprise topping that could convince the potential ally even more. However, it's naive to say that Kijima will let everything go under Atsuomi plan, especially since we still don't know where Tsukishiro puts his loyalty. It was mentioned in volume 12.5 that Kijima and President Coenji had a meeting at the same time around when Ayanokoji's enrollment was decided, so there is a good chance that Coenji is the safety net that Kijima prepared to handle Ayanokoji. Ayanokoji's defeat at the hand of Coenji would make every potential ally turn their back on Atsuomi, and choose to support Kijima instead. In that way, Kijima doesn't need to do anything, and Atsuomi will end up broken way harder than before. But of course, his plan heavily relies on Coenji's ability, and we still have no idea when Coenji will choose to take action. However, one thing for sure is, the result of the four-class battle will be really important for the future of the political world. If Ayanokoji manages to defeat Coenji and graduate from Class A, Atsuomi will secure his bright future as a politician with the ally who supported him, but if Ayanokoji lose, it will be pretty much game over for Atsuomi. That is why, for better or worse, Ayanokoji really needs to lose, because if he ends up victorious, it will be a tragic ending for him, because his father will keep using him for the rest of his life.